So being a lawyer is one of the highest paid careers in the UK, right? After 2 years of training, a junior lawyer at a leading law firm will get 100k or 150k or even 180k. Now, I think there's a few things you learn later that's worth factoring in if you're thinking about the money. So first, you don't start on these figures. These are NQ figures. They take 2 years of training. And that's useful to know because it's not guaranteed that you're going to be retained or that you'll even want to stay. So just bear this in mind. If you choose a firm based on the highest NQ salary, say a Kirkland and Ellis, you're making a bet you're going to stay there longer than 2 years to benefit from that. And you might not. Say you chose a firm, worked crazy hours for 2 years and then left. You could have worked at a firm with a slightly lower salary, but with a happier training contract experience. It's also worth factoring in that you can move later. It's not guaranteed or always easy, but just know if you train at an otherwise reputable firm, you can decide to move later for a higher pay. Now let's think about post-tax. So imagine one firm pays 120,000, firm A, and another firm pays 150,000. You think, okay, I probably would prefer my time at firm A, but look, this firm pays a lot more. Now, if you actually factor in the post-tax difference, it's about £1,260 a month. And the question then becomes, is it worth that for the unhappiness I might get at firm B? I think it's important that you're fairly compensated given how hard you work as a lawyer. But what I think about is long-term earning potential. So on one hand, yes, you could join a firm and you work crazy hours, you're paid a lot in the short term, but say you leave and burn out, then compare a situation where you join a mid-market firm and you're paid less in the short term, but say you love the work, you love the people, you progress to partner, and you out-earn what you would have done if you joined the other firm. Or if you are the person that knows, I just want to make a lot of money now, then join the firm that pays a really high NQ salary. It's just important to know what you want. Now, when I was going through the application process, I had in my head that I'm going to devote all of my time to the law firm I get a training contract with. And so I was happy to apply to a firm like Weil. Doesn't mean I was working 7 days a week, right? But it was useful for me to have that mentality. If you know you don't want to work long hours, you're probably better off applying to a mid-sized firm known for a more relaxed working culture compared to a Magic Circle, Silver Circle, or US law firm. Keep in mind that different practice areas in a law firm tend to work different hours. For example, transactional work is long because you're closing a deal, there's time pressure, it moves at a fast pace. But if you sit in a contentious seat or in an advisory seat, your hours may not be as long, it may be more consistent. It's also worth noting that you could join a mid-market firm with a relaxed culture, but then you join the team that's known as the best in the market, and then you'll be working longer hours. Okay, this is not obvious as an applicant. You often look at firms as a whole, but actually the way that law firms work is lawyers are grouped by practice areas. I'll give you a few examples. If I'm interested in venture capital, the best of the best, there'll be firms like Cooley, Goodwin, Osborne Clark, and Latham. If it's employment, I'm looking at Lewis Silkin, A&O Shimon, Baker McKenzie. And if it's financial services regulation, that's firms like Latham, Linklaters, Ashurst. So when you look at firms, don't ask which firm is the best. Actually look at what firm is best for what. So you could join a firm that's really good, but it's actually not that highly ranked for the practice area you end up being interested in. Equally, you could join a firm that's considered, okay, mid-market, but it's actually exceptional at the work you are interested in. And you want to be careful of having your heart set on something before you're sure of it, because studying or reading an area of law is very different to practicing. Realistically, the best you can hope for is to learn about the work early. That's what we try to do at TCLA.
IP, the name of the game, is if you're a company and you've either invented something or you have a trademark, or you've designed a particularly fetching briefcase or whatever it is.
Lean into a sense of, okay, this area of work sounds pretty interesting. I should lean into that. I might learn more about it, but I might change my mind later. And as you notice, you find areas of law interesting. Find a firm where you'd actually have the chance of trying it out. An associate I spoke to made a great point, which is that the size of the teams matters. Say you're interested in employment and you join a US firm and they have such a small team, it might not actually be possible that you get to do a seat there during your training contract. That's why if you're not sure what work you want to do, it can be helpful to join firms that are good at a range of practice areas with a good chance you can actually do a seat and a range of options. You'll probably have to do a transactional and a contentious seat anyway, so it only gives you 2 seats to play around with. And if you joined a firm like Kirkland where all the work you're doing is around private equity, that may not be something you enjoy. A good training contract means the firm has the time to teach you, you'll be around technically great lawyers, and you have a high level of responsibility. Now, every trainee I spoke to mentioned the importance of structured training, no matter if they were in a UK or US firm. Now, this has historically been different with the smaller US law firms. Being new to London and hiring only a small number of trainees, they haven't historically had the same level of resources as, say, a Magic Circle law firm, where you expect a huge amount of trainings, presentations, seat inductions. There's a like well-developed knowledge system, and it's just well structured and defined. So while learning on the job and high responsibility can sound great at a US firm, sometimes you just need to be taught. And the question is, has this changed? Honestly, it is very firm dependent. The best thing you can do is speak to trainees or associates and ask questions about their honest experiences. Are there access to senior people who review and teach along the way? Does the culture prioritize learning as much as getting stuff done? What is it like when you make mistakes? And what is the supervision of work like? Do you get pushed to own stuff, but also have someone review your work? Finally, one of the big benefits of going to a firm to start with that really pushes you is you'll learn more just because of the sheer number of hours that you're working. You'll be a much more competent associate with exit opportunities. I compare that to training at a regional office or in-house and then trying to move into the London office of a leading law firm. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but the training you've received might not prepare you to adjust as well. Back in my day, you stayed at the firm you were applying to. That was normal, but the legal market has changed a lot since then. People now move around all the time. Honestly, most future trainees and trainees I speak to don't know if they'll stay at the firm they have a training contract with for many more years. But prestige matters to the extent to which it opens doors for you to move to other firms. Now, if you trained at a leading law firm like Slaughter & May or Latham, you probably don't need to worry that much that the firm you trained at won't carry over well to the firm you plan to move to. And as we talked about, this is team specific, right? So if you did, say, venture capital at Osborne Clark, you've trained in an outstanding team. So this is worth factoring in if you're, say, thinking about training regionally and then, okay, maybe later I'll move to London, or you join a small firm and then you want to move to a Paul Weiss. Just keep in mind that if you're not sure where to start, your first firm can help to preserve options. Okay, this one's tough. The reality is that what will make the difference during your training contract and beyond is the team that you sit with. These are the people you spend your time with day in and day out. But the problem is you won't know what your specific team is like before you join, right? It really depends on the seat that you choose. But it also has one of the biggest impacts on how much you enjoy or don't enjoy your time. One awful supervisor can break your experience at the firm. So my best point here is that you should speak to trainees and associates and partners. And it is true to say that you do get a different feel for different firms being in the office. Some do feel more stuffy and conservative, some will feel more relaxed. I remember for me, someone told me that you will just know it when you're in the right firm for you. And I chose Weil because I liked how the lawyers seemed to work really hard, but they also cared about the quality of their work. And that just felt like it clicked for me. My honest answer here is not all firms are diverse, and not all firms have hiring practices that are diverse. And that can be despite what you see online. Some law firms have historically recruited from a very small number of universities and a really tiny range of backgrounds. Now, what matters to me the most is proof. So proof that I can see lawyers at the firm, from trainee to associate to partner, that genuinely come from diverse backgrounds. That's a lot more convincing to me than the number of alliances a firm has, because it shows that they genuinely practice what they preach. AI and tech is going to change every industry in the next few years, but law firms are treating this really differently right now. So I spoke to a trainee he himself is very tech forward, and he mentioned that some trainees are banned from using AI right now, whereas some firms that claim to be very legal tech forward have really low adoption of tools like Harvey and Legora. And then there's some firms like his that are actively encouraging trainees to use it to actually minimize their own repetitive work. So you probably want to ask questions about this if this is a point you care about. Now, you might care about international work. I know for me, I just didn't factor that in that much. But if you really want to do, say, an international secondment and spend 6 months abroad, know that some firms will guarantee it, like White & Case. And some firms will say they have international secondments, but it's actually really hard to get one. You might also care about, I actually want to work on work that is global. And then you may be better off choosing a firm like Baker McKenzie or CMS. This also applies to client secondments. So there can be really cool secondments out there, like spending 6 months at Meta. And so that's worth looking into, and not just international secondments. Realistically, the best you can hope for is to learn about the work early. That's what we do at TCLA, where we have lawyers teach you about the different practice areas in a law firm. It's very hard to make a decision on where you want to spend your time in a law firm at the age of 20. And so my takeaway is that you should notice what areas you like, find a firm that lets you sit in those areas, but also be willing to change your mind once you start. The goal of choosing the right law firm for you is to set yourself up for the best training and the best future options.